Hello, NFT Land. I'm Creatorius Rex, and I am here today for another episode of The Twin. We call The Twin This Week in NFT News. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Scott Leach. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, we're heading into the holidays, but
Yep.
people are cramming these new NFT projects in. There's a lot of news. Everyone's trying to get it in before people get away for a while. We can talk a little bit about what that all means. But we've had a lot of high profile things going on. But before we start, what's keeping you busy?
Just similar, trying to wrap everything, get things nice and wrapped up before holiday madness. Yeah, lots of rally stuff, lots of personal NFT browsing. I'm hoping to use some of this time off to dig deeper on some projects as a collector, but we'll see what happens.
I'll be doing that too as a researcher. So one of the things we've been working on is we're going to roll out some reports and some data on NFT project analysis, beyond that as well, just sort of NFTs in general. So we've been looking at a lot of things. So anybody who's interested in that, go to niftorius.com. Follow the news there, obviously. But if you sign up for the newsletter, there's just like a little email capture. You'll get that, or join the Discord, the Niftorius Discord. We'll be talking about a lot of this data over the next few weeks. So if you're interested in that type of thing, it'll be a great place to do it. You can always follow me on the Twitter as well at Creatorius Rex. Okay, so we have a pretty busy show today. I'll give people the quick rundown. We have this recurring theme, which we're going to start out with, which is brands and NFT lands. A lot of brand activity over the last week or so. So we're going to talk about that. We've got 3 or 4 different projects to talk about there. And then we actually have just sort of core NFT projects. We've got a few of those. We're going to talk about VeeFriends back in the news, but Gary Vee more broadly. We didn't get to Kevin Rose last week, so I want to talk about that. CryptoDads. And then we're going to talk a little bit of data. So we're going to do a deep dive into OpenSea charts in particular, since that is that's the largest marketplace so far. So it has a little bit of the benefit of giving us a pulse on the market right now. There's a lot of other things going on out there, which we'll talk about as well today. But so brands and NFT lands, some project spotlights, and a data dive. And we might even talk a little bit about a contest we ran in Niftorian. We had some really cool owls that were created, so maybe we'll show those off as well. Okay, first story today, if it's okay with you, Scott, is I would like to talk about Adidas. So everybody who's not familiar with the Adidas project, it was a collaboration between Adidas, Bored Ape Yacht Club, including the Mutants, and gmoney, and Pixel Vault. And Pixel Vault, people know from Punk's comic fame, Meta Heroes. I know, Scott, you're pretty into that project.
Mm-hmm.
So they did this collaboration. It's an NFT. It's an 1155, and there's some reasons for that, which they've revealed, which is pretty interesting. It went on sale. Oh, and by the way, there's a utility associated with it. So the named utility is there are 4 pieces of clothing, but it's really 3 because one of them is a tracksuit with a top and a bottom. What you're seeing right there is the top, which is a different top, which is a hoodie on that gmoney ape. So that's a special hoodie, which has the collaborators in this project emblazoned on the front, and then there's going to be a beanie. And so these things were going for 0.2 ETH. You could buy up to 2 of them in the drop. So that's 0.2 ETH, not cheap. That's $800 for basically 3 pieces of clothing. So cheap. And then it spiked up, obviously, afterwards, which we can talk about. But really interesting. So they had a drop. It was scheduled for Friday. And it started out, they had 30,000 NFTs. So we don't see a lot of these really big drops right now. They tend to actually, we've seen more and more small ones, which we'll talk about later. But they reserved 20,000 for their collaboration partners. So anyone who's in the gmoney community, who has POAPs, also some Adidas POAPs. So they had a few of those, but it was mostly the Bored Ape Yacht Club community and then the Pixel Vault community. So there are 20,000 set aside for them in a pre-mint. And then they had a public mint afterwards. And just so people get the general idea of what happened, they started the pre-mint event for about 20 minutes. There was a lot of complaining because when they took the snapshot, they must have forgotten Mutants and didn't see the mutants in that. And so no one who had a mutant only, not a Bored Ape, could actually mint. So they actually closed it about 9,200 had been minted after 20 minutes. They closed it for several hours. They brought it back up at 5 p.m. Eastern. And in about 20 minutes, the remaining 11,000 were gone of that 20,000 pre-mint. But they did then enable all the mutants, which are actually a really significant portion of the Bored Ape community. In fact, I think it's more than half at this point. So that took about another 20 minutes. And then at 6 p.m. Eastern, they had a public mint for, we'll call it 10,000. It was really 9,900 about, because they had a few reserved for marketing and collaborations, but call it 10,000, gone within a minute. In fact, some people say it was gone in a second. So I don't know, but it's like, we'll say somewhere between 1 second, 1 minute, either way, instantly. And one lucky collector got 320 of the, even though there's a limit of 2, so you can buy 2, limit of 2, you got 320. Okay. So that's the general background. It was trading between the pre-mint and the public mint. These were trading individually for about 0.35 to 0.5. So it was basically doubled from what the 0.2 mint price was. And then it spiked up, and then it's been running about 0.75 to 0.85 ETH since then, which is a pretty expensive tracksuit. Scott, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh boy, I'm still struggling with this brand stuff and trying to come to terms with it and separate my own bias. I think Adidas is doing it right in terms of partnering with projects that are like established and have large communities around them. The utility, I think, is awesome, especially if you're into tracksuits and sneakers and that kind of merch. I know, like, sneakerheads, obviously it's different than, I don't know that any company could come in and do this, any other clothing company necessarily. I like it in a lot of ways, but I also still worry, like, is this kind of just where NFTs are going? Like, we're just going to get more stuff and that's it. That worries me.
Okay. Here's what I think is important about this. So first of all, Adidas is an apparel company, a sports apparel company, but they're really a culture company. And what they did is they aligned with gmoney, Bored Ape Yacht Club, and Pixel Vault, 3 of the NFT projects that are really core to the culture of NFTs today and have actually crossed over, at least a couple of those 3, maybe all 3, have crossed over into general culture. And I think what they did right was they aligned with them. So they had the street cred of taking their culture, which is mainstream culture, maybe a little avant-garde in some areas, tied it together with NFT culture, and added utility. They didn't just try to put an NFT out there. They said, hey, what we want to do is we want to create this exclusive access to our merchandise in a way that's actually aligned with that NFT culture. And then they've said over time, this is going to potentially lead to access to other activities going forward. But it seemed like they really had perfect pitch on this, from, hitting the market at the right time in the right way, and in a way that maybe some of the previous brand drops like Pepsi didn't really hit the mark.
Yeah, in terms of like getting it right, I don't think any other big brands come close to this. It just feels like they very well thought out. Obviously hiccups on the minting process itself, but we've seen that with everything. So that's no surprise. That's just the space is growing and everyone's learning. But yeah, I agree with your assessment. They nailed it in terms of how best to execute it. And that's a big deal, because this is really new. And the fact that they did it well is good.
Yeah, and I actually say that they had an issue, and that was in the pre-mint, which I think they did the right thing and fixed it. There were some people complaining, they're like, "What do I have to wait for 4 hours to mint?" and things like that. But some of those people would have missed the mint, frankly, if they hadn't already minted in the first 20 minutes. But really, kudos to them that they nailed the public one. The public one was the hard one because they had a lot of bots trying to go after this. And that's how that one guy spent, I think he spent a couple $100,000 in gas to get the 320. And that was like 600,000 to buy them. But then like, obviously these things were going at 4x, 3 to 4x the mint price. So I'm sure he did quite well on the flip. But, frankly, the fact that it didn't take it down, that's been a problem for a lot of folks. Essentially these are like denial of service attacks.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to do a lot of really great things. Plus they have this cool mechanic, which I haven't seen before. But so you have this utility, sort of like VeeFriends. So VeeFriends, you had VeeCon. So you always knew that even if you had a core, there's something very tangible that you get out of it. In this case, the tangible thing you get out of it is exclusive merch, and you've paid for it. All you have to do basically in the launch window is go to a site, verify that you have the token, enter your address, and they'll send you the item. When they do that, they're going to burn your 1155 token. But then they're immediately going to replace it with one of a different color. So it's going to say the bluish purple one. Right now, you can access all three. And so maybe the next one will be pink. And you can only access the last two with that. And then they'll burn that and it'll be like yellow. And that'll be the last one. Actually, they'll probably go orange and yellow given what they're going to be rolling out with. But I thought that was a really interesting idea, that each time you use it, they're going to change it. And then at the end, they're going to give you yet another one. So it'll be your fourth NFT you will have had from them, but the other three are going to be burned. And then you're going to get one which will be part of Adidas Originals. And I fully expect that'll be required for access to future mints, or will be one of the tools that'll get you on the pre-mint wait list.
Yeah. It's smart. I mean, yeah, it looks like it's really, they thought through it. I don't know why I'm so cautious about these things. I don't know. I think just the promise, somehow in my head, I have this idea that NFTs are going to do something grand, and I don't know what it is. So I guess it's on me to figure that out.
Well, and they might do something grand, but I just thought this was perfect pitch on Adidas.
Yeah, they nailed it. I think the thing we're gonna see as this goes on is, do they become, for brands like Adidas, the culture comment you made, I think is super accurate. There's a thing that we've seen Gary start to do, for example, where you get whatever the utility was that came with it, but he sort of is adding in these perks, and he's trying to embrace those communities around each of his tokens, right? In a way that goes a little bit beyond the utility. Will brands like Adidas do that, or will you just get your tracksuit and these will kind of be like transactional, or is it going to be more than that? I think I'm really curious to see if they participate in the community, or if they just give a community access to something early and that's it. I guess we'll see.
Okay, great. I think we put a bow on that. We more than well covered it, but I think that was the biggest drop of the last week. And so it was good to spend a little extra time on it. Very clever. We have another interesting story, and that's from L'Oreal. And L'Oreal, the cosmetics company, has a new female digital NFT artist project that they've launched alongside a new lipstick line that they're doing. It's called Paris Reds, and it's called Reds of Worth, or sorry, L'Oreal Paris Reds of Worth is the name of it. And the recognition was that there aren't a lot of NFT collectors that are women. There aren't a lot of NFT artists are women. I think the numbers are like 5% of the collectors are women, and maybe 16% of the NFT artists. I'm not sure where they got the data from, what they looked at, but let's say that seems reasonably true. So they commissioned 5 women to do different pieces. They did a limited drop. And I think it's really clever what they've done, and also really nicely on brand.
Yeah, these are cool. I think anytime, when they're collaborating with artists, I think that's one of the neat things. I like that. I like seeing that. It's cool.
Yeah. So I think this is a really interesting angle too that they talked about, because obviously their primary constituency is women.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really well known. I'm sure there are men who buy this too, but primarily women, and really taking this as an opportunity to highlight some of the women artists, because I think it is a space where the brands can actually have a big impact and create a little bit more awareness around some of these artists. Now, these weren't actually like obscure female artists. They, a couple of them are pretty well known actually in the space, but I think I was really happy to see them to do this, and it just seemed like, like Nike, they really hit the nail on the head, and the art is so cool. I mean, this is a perfect example with this one right here.
Yeah. I think I have to give credit to a lot of these brands that are being very like conscious of the space and sort of not trouncing in and making big mistakes. This is thoughtful, and they're hiring, like you said, it's relevant. Again, I still have the thing of like, can we trust brands whose like primary incentive is their bottom line? Like, what? It's tricky. That's the part that I get skeptical about. But doing this type of stuff to start is great. I mean, the fact that I think collaboration could be a big place where brands could do lots of, make some smart moves and give members of the community, whether they be artists or people with their, own NFT projects, giving them an opportunity to participate in some of these brand things and benefit from them. I think that's a solid approach that definitely makes me a little more like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Also, I'm also trying to wrestle that with the fact that the more of these brands and that come in the space, the better it is for everyone that's already in the space. Yes, new people are coming on board and all that kind of stuff. So
just generating awareness among civilians who haven't quite in yet. And I guess just a couple more details on it. It's really worth noting that 100% of the primary sales went to the artists. So L'Oreal wasn't actually taking any of that to cover their costs. They sold 14.5 ETH worth in the initial drop. And then some of the 50% of the secondary is going to be donated to a philanthropic initiative. I think the other 50% goes to the artist, but I'm not positive on that. But in any event, I just thought it was really well done.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I should have clarified that too. They made all the right moves here. And I don't think this is, a straight up money grab or anything like that. I think that they're entering the space and doing it in a thoughtful way. And, I want to make sure that my caution is my own and I'm not prescribing it to the.
Oh, I didn't take it that way. I mean, I think it's, the brands, when they come in thoughtfully and do these types of things, I think are really using it the right way. I'll be interested to see what they do next, because it isn't clear to me. I mean, this is part of a product launch. I think we're going to see this. One of the interesting things is this collection is going to live on beyond the product launch. So then what happens long term? And I think it's harder for a brand to actually abandon these things because they're there forever. We saw that with the McRib launch. And I don't know if people knew this. We haven't covered it on the show, but McDonald's McRib went out and somebody in one of the transactions added a message. And so it was something that wasn't like favorable, that McDonald's wouldn't necessarily want associated with their brand. And it's on the blockchain forever. So there is that. Okay. Yep. Next up, let's talk about Stephen Curry.
Mm-hmm.
NBA player. For those of you who don't follow basketball, he just became the NBA 3-point leader. And that was just a week ago. So this must have been planned for a long time, actually. They dropped 2974. It's called the 2974 collection, NFTs. And there were a couple of things that were interesting about this. So first of all, it's a celebrity. So we call basketball players, they're athletes, but they're really celebrities, I think, in our culture. And a few things were pretty interesting about this. So first of all, all the profits, not revenue, but all the profits are going to Stephen and his wife Stephen Curry's and his wife's philanthropic effort, which goes to at-risk kids, which I think is really cool. They had all these different scenes from each of his 3 points. They have a special drop associated with it, but it was minted on FTX. And so FTX, if people aren't familiar with, they've been really aggressive about bringing a lot of the athletes to support their exchange. This was the first drop of any note that I recall showing up in FTX. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing I would say about it is they had basically a big problem. There's this 2-step minting process. You went to the website, the mint button had to show up. You had to click that. It took you to a proprietary FTX page. You had to click mint again. So it looked like it was going to be time for the bots, and it was sort of. So they couldn't actually get the mint button on the main website to load up because essentially they had a denial of service attack coming forward from a few consumers and a lot of bots trying to get in. And so they delayed that a couple times. And then finally, an hour and a half after it was supposed to launch, they said, no, we're going to try this again tomorrow at noon, which they did. And Roger Kibbe, who you know, the Kipster and the Niftorious Discord, he actually, about 4 minutes after the launch at noon Eastern time yesterday, was able to get one of the items. And so I thought that was really interesting. Any thoughts on this?
I like it. I mean, I think he's been in the space a little bit, like he has an ape, and I know he's interested in the space. So again, it's like I imagine he's pretty involved in it. So it's fairly thoughtful. I think it goes back to some of the, as more of these projects come out, where I think we're going to start seeing more of these, they're on a different layer or they're on a side chain. And we're going to see the pros and cons of that, whether it's, other exploits on bad actors or bots, or whether it's, ETH purists that are like, no, I'm not going to do that. But it's cool. I think it's a neat, and again, like the fact that a lot of people are using this stuff for philanthropic things or to empower other people is really awesome. Yeah, I love that aspect of it, and it's a huge milestone in his career. Like it's a neat way to celebrate it in an immutable. It just fits. It all fits together well, I think.
I love the art too. I mean, the sketch idea, the art. 2 different artists participated. One in the main 2974 PFP and another in the companion drop, which is going to everybody. So really like that. I think the FTX thing is interesting because you basically had to put $500 in fiat in FTX in order to buy this, which is sort of a really clever way for FTX to get some circulation going. And then the NFT is actually on FTX, but you can basically export it to Solana. It's not clear to me once it goes to Solana if it comes back, but I think you can still see it because FTX is a viewer that goes across a couple chains. So you still probably be able to see it. But I thought that was very interesting that they also chose to work with Solana on this, probably for gas fees and some other considerations there. But is this the type of thing that really could be like maybe Vee has done for some of the big licensed media brands by creating this off-chain solution, which makes it easy to do the drop? We talked last week about how Vee is coming to Ethereum through Immutable X. And they're making that transition. In this case, we've got FTX. I think they're going to get a lot of sports stars on FTX, and then it's going to wind up being on Solana. Could this be the type of thing that gets not just civilians in, but also really stands up or really helps some of these chains like Layer 2 on Ethereum or Solana, its own blockchain?
I think absolutely. Yeah, I've been mentioning Solana here and there, and just using it for various DeFi things and investigating some of the NFT stuff. It's ridiculously fast, and there's no fees. And it's I think as soon as someone does a project people are interested in, they see that, there's a lot of people going to start moving over. The big question I have about these, and I'm really curious to find out, is the side chains and the other layer 1 stuff they seem to be good at bringing in new people, right? So people that don't know much about NFTs that are getting into the space. They seem to draw the bots and the people that are flipping. are they drawing any kind of hardcore collectors in the space or influencers who
Well, definitely some
I
in VV, definitely some, because like
yeah,
people, like Dan Schwabel, Jeremiah Oyang. I mean, they are collectors in VV
yeah,
because they really believe that that's going to be an important. Those are going to be important collections. But interestingly enough, they're not active collectors in like core Ethereum markets. And so I think that's really the interesting thing. Where are we going to see that just be like these little islands, or are
yeah,
they going to get
yeah,
into the other chains as well?
yeah. And then based on that, to go back to your question, depending on which of those islands finds a big thing that everyone hops on, what happens to the other ones? Do we start to see, one coin emerge as or a few coins emerge as the dominant chains? I think, yeah, it'll be
We already
interesting to
have a
see.
dominant chain. I mean, most of the activity, well over half the activities on Ethereum today.
Yeah, and I don't think that's. I don't know. It could be incredibly naive to say, but I don't think Ethereum's ever going to go anywhere necessarily. I think it may change and evolve, but um, some of these other chains, we just don't know. Yeah. um, I also think the other thing that's going to happen too, and we've talked about this before, there's going to be a method for moving this stuff around that is transparent are so seamless to the end user that it doesn't matter where they bought their NFT. It can be moved to whatever layer, whenever,
Yes.
in a seamless way. I think that's probably inevitable, but
Well, multi-chain wallets is my prediction will really break open all of these secondary chains. I think we do have this natural monopoly going on where Ethereum, because it was first to scale, is
mm,
going to be really hard to dislodge. I don't know if that means it's 80%, certainly more than 80% by dollar value today. It's not necessarily not quite 80% by total project volume. They're going to be hard to dislodge. But once we have these multi-chain wallets that you'll be able to see your NFTs and it'll make it a little bit more seamless, I think it's really going to help Solana,
yeah.
Immutable, Polygon, some of those things you can do today anyway, but maybe Tezos.
hmm
Okay,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
actually, before we leave Steph Curry, let's talk about a different topic with Steph Curry, and
hmm
that is immediately after he did his drop 29.74, very successful. Under Armour comes out with a surprise drop of a shoe. It's the shoe he wore the night he broke the NBA 3-point scoring record. But they basically created the pixel version of it for Decentraland and Sandbox. And there's one other one. I have to think about what it is. But basically, 3 metaverse places. So one NFT, and you get to use it in these 3 different metaverses for this virtual shoe. Any thoughts on that?
I think it goes to what we were just talking about, right? Like they're being thoughtful about how to make that user experience seamless for the end user, and also it's smart because who knows which metaverse is going to win, or if we're always just going to have different ones. And someone needs to figure out this notion of an avatar or a likeness in the metaverse that is made up of NFTs, whether the core avatar is an NFT or they have NFT clothes or whatnot. I think that is something that's going to be consistent across, at least it seems that way. And having a method where I can jump from Sandbox to crypto voxels, or carry that stuff with me, I think is going to matter to a lot of folks. Again, it's going to depend how those metaverses evolve, but that feels like a smart move on Under Armour's side.
Yeah, again, on brand. I think it really
Yep.
makes sense. It was a fairly low risk drop. I mean, I think the higher risk is actually the functionality, make sure it is actually usable across those metaverses with all that implies going forward with API connections. And then also being able to add those to an avatar, and be able to integrate that. But still on brand, takes advantage of celebrity in a recent event. And interestingly enough, we've had Nike with the acquisition of Artifact, RTFKT. We've had Adidas with the Adidas Originals drop, and now we have Under Armour all within 10 days. Seems like it's really heating up, and sports might be leading the way.
Yeah. And we're in sort of a cold, we're in this weird, everything is, the coins are sort of, we're dipping and then flat. And then everyone's talking about bear markets or whatever, and then NFTs have been doing sort of weird, a little bit of weirdness too. So this feels like I think it's good for the space to have some success projects like this. And I think it's what's allowing a lot of, I think this is a total assumption on my part, but I think a lot of new folks are jumping into the space based on these big opportunities they're hearing about. I'd be curious to know how many of the people that, even if they didn't get if they missed the Adidas drop, did they go through the process of getting money in their wallet and now they're in it and they're looking at other NFTs? How many new users did this stuff bring on board?
I think it's critical. We talk about Coinbase really helping bring the masses in because they have an easy onboarding to crypto. There's some other players who are definitely doing that and playing a role there as well. But I think these drops by big brands around sports, these other cultural touchstones, really important for expanding the market. And I think you're going to see just a lot of different behavior. And so if you're actually new to the space and you're watching today just to learn more about it, go to niftorius.com. We cover all these types of things. We try to give people a perspective on what's happening and how this market is evolving. It's rapidly. But I could see that if we don't have that new blood, we might be heading towards an era of stagnation because there's so many people who have been in the market for a year who are collectors, but are on the investor side of collecting. And there's this dominant thesis that only blue chips are going to survive. And so if you're they want to be in the right PFPs, and then 99% are going to fail and all these other types of things. And most of those people are not in the art market very much. In the NFT art, they're really around the project market. So I think bringing these new people in who I think will be collectors first and investors second really could rejuvenate the industry and drive a lot more interesting activity.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think we're going to see these waves of the investors and then the collectors and then the utility stuff. Like we're starting to see more of the utility stuff. We've talked a lot about that in other shows, but I think the more that stuff starts to get developed, there's going to be some straight up utility use cases that make this so much better than what exists otherwise. That it'll be really interesting, I think, to see how some of these things impact the space.
Okay, so that'll conclude the brands and NFT lands segment, which we've been doing. It used to be like the third segment. Now it's consistently the first segment because they're some of the most important activities going on. But let's talk about projects. Let's talk about the NFT native projects. And the first one I want to talk about is Gary Vee. And I can't just say a project with Gary Vee because we're talking about 4 different projects this week from Gary Vee. We'll try not to take too long on it. But the first one was Uno. So he did a deal with Mattel. He's been saying since pre-launch back in a podcast with Kevin Rose back in March, I think it was, of this year, he said licensing, big deal, something I'm going to do. First real big licensing deal with VeeFriends on Uno. You could buy the cards. You could buy up to 10. I think you did buy 10. I bought 3. They were sold out within an hour. It was just a press release. I think it was in the Discord. There wasn't a lot of promotion around it, but people who found it were able to go and buy quickly. But if you weren't quick, you didn't get there.
Yeah, these went fast. And it's such a cool, he just does a good job with the brand stuff. Like he loves nostalgia, especially from when his period of growing up, and Uno was a huge game back in the 80s, and it still is, but was immensely popular. And he loves cards, and this foil wrapped chaser card you get with each one.
Yes,
it's brilliant. Like, I don't know. So you get the normal deck of Uno cards with a lot of VeeFriends characters, but then each set you get comes with a foil wrapped card that's not playable, but it's a collectible. And he's talking about, he loves going to card shows. He's been into sports cards and talks about that a lot. So I was in his announcement. I want to say he brought this up in somewhere else. maybe it was just a video he posted in his Discord, but talking about, going to card shows and seeing people sell, like he wants to go there with the intention of trying to buy some of these cards from people. He likes the idea of going there and seeing people open packs and have the cards graded right there on the spot. Just lots of neat that subculture that he's a part of, trying to capture some of that. I think it's, again, just super smart. The mix of a card game with a collectible is,
I think it's great. That the idea we're getting into these physical collectibles, we're blurring the lines. I was surprised that they didn't tie an NFT into it, but I think that would have messed with the economics a little bit. But maybe he'll do something with those foil wrapped cards.
I would not be surprised. Yeah, that feels like it feels like an opportunity for
he's
something.
Going to look at that as something else to exploit. No, I mean take advantage of. No. I mean to add value to. It's like he's playing the NFT game, and to him, I think it is a game at a completely different level. It's three-dimensional.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So along those lines, so we've got, but he's got a completely new NFT project. It is a club. It's called the Flyfish Club. It's got two different types of tokens. It was a very narrow release, both basically to insiders, Gary insiders. Initially, you can buy it on OpenSea in the secondary market. But what it does, it's basically, it's a restaurant in New York City. You can only get access to it if you hold one of the NFTs. There's a secondary, there's one that's more expensive, the Amakashi version. And then you can actually have you have access to this sushi bar, which is very exclusive. I think that was like 4 times more expensive or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the Flyfish Club. So he's got this, he basically created a real world club in New York City. I think it's going to be a winner.
Yeah. It's, again, this is like the outside the box utility stuff is so cool. And I think it's going to be good because if he can do this and show that it works, like a lot of people are going to, this is what we need right now. No one really knows what NFTs are, what they can do. So seeing some interesting use cases, I think is going to trigger people's imagination. I'm excited about it. I think it was really smart, really cool.
Okay. So now this seems like the most obvious thing to me. Like, so we have we have V Friends, which is like being in a club. It's a club that only shows up once a year for VeeCon. But now we have this idea of a permanence of a club, and it's only semi-permanent because I think these are 3-year tokens. I think we're starting to see that a lot more where people are putting end dates on them, which I think is pretty savvy. The thing that's different here, this is not the first club in NFT land. I mean, so very famously, Bored Ape Yacht Club has some real estate now in a couple cities that you can go to. This is the first one that I am aware of that is really integrated into the hospitality industry, has a core utilitarian function of it's a restaurant, it's a club that people can go to. This is part of an announcement he made many months ago. The VCR Group, I think is the name of it, where he got together with some former restaurateurs and chefs to create this. And this is, I think, their first project that they're rolling out. And I'm guessing it's going to be the first of many. My guess is Flyfish Club starts in New York and is going to expand to LA, probably somewhere in Europe, certainly Miami. And then after that, I'm not really sure, but I could see those 3 US cities and maybe London or Paris added to it. And it's going to be an international network of clubs called the Flyfish Club and NFT access. Really interesting. Plus, that gives them an excuse every time they do a new club to put out more tokens.
Yep. Yeah. It's super smart. And I think I don't think I mentioned it here, but I was talking to somewhere else. Like imagine an airline doing this where you could buy an NFT for a seat on the plane and you own that seat and you could always fly on that plane if you held that, or you could lease out your NFT. Never would happen. But the fact that that's possible for a startup to do that. So I don't think there's any, airlines going to start up, but if you had you could start to see how someone could build a business around selling tokens ahead of time to fund something like that.
That's brilliant. The next NetJets should be
exactly. exactly. Yeah. And you
Maybe
could
an
do it with
annual fee as well.
ski resorts. Like I want to open a ski resort. I'll sell NFTs that could be season passes for 5 years, or like a huge one that's a lifetime seasons pass if you invest in this NFT. There's so many of these things that I think are going to be, yeah, it starts to show you how get your imagination going about all the ways you could use NFTs for this kind of thing.
Okay, so that's Flyfish Cub. Speaker announcements for VeeCon. So we've been waiting for those for 6 months. We're now, I guess, 6 months away, less than 6 months away from VeeCon. What did you think of the roster of speakers that Gary has lined up?
He had mentioned something, and I think it was one of the Hangout Hawks or Gift Goats meetings about how just sort of wild the cross section of people were, and that was the impression I got off seeing it. Was such a interesting, eclectic mix of folks from, obviously lots of people in the NFT space already to Deepak Chopra, and Kevin Smith, Kevin Rose, just lots of interesting folks. Musicians. I saw Illmind on there who he's got a rally coin. Like there's lots of interesting folks in that mix. So I'm excited about that. And he's saying that that's only like 25% of the speakers, that there's still a lot more to announce. So
yes. So a lot of Web3, obviously, in the NFT world. Pablo Stanley's on there, Danny Cole, some of the well-regarded artists in the space. He has a lot of Web 2 influencers, so like the Logan Paul, the D'Amelio sisters, and then just like generally famous people. So, I think about Kevin Smith, for example, the movie director and producer. So it seems like he's trying to bring all these things together. So NFT, crypto culture, influencer culture, entertainment and media culture. And I presume there'll be some brands there floating around as well. But given the number of people that I think are going to be speaking at this show, there's going to be more than 10,288 attendees, because I assume all these people are going to get access. So that's a way to get access if you can't spend
be a speaker, right?
15 ETH on a.
Oh, maybe he'll give them those. He's holding a bunch of those V-Friends, right? Like he's got all those ones that he holds.
I don't think he's giving those away. And he doesn't have enough.
That could be his bribe to get them to come to the show.
Maybe, but I think
not bribe, part of the payment.
Yeah, I think people would be foolish not to be part of this.
Yeah.
I mean, like, obviously, like, Beeple's there and Eric Calder.
So
it's like anybody wants to be in the space. This is going to be the biggest deal going on. It'll be different though, because it's going to be in Minnesota and not New York City. I think that'll actually help it because there's not as much distraction.
The thing I like about him that, and I think it's what a lot of people dislike, like he just does some of the choices are just strange, I think, to some people, but they, like, even if you look at a lot of the folks he got to speak, so some of them are not obvious, but you would think thered be a lot of NFT folks on there. Beeple's a huge deal, obviously a name that people even not in the space might recognize. A lot of the other celebrities he got, they have a hardcore audience, but they also have some level of like hate around them too, or like, I can't stand Kevin Smith films. But the people that do love Kevin Smith's films are pretty hardcore into it. And he was always an outlier in terms of his approach to filmmaking. And a lot of his conversations around that. He's also a collector too. So I know that appeals to Gary.
I'm guessing the NFT crowd will like Kevin Smith.
Yeah, but I think even like Deepak Chopra, Logan Paul. Hollywood. Yes, that's what I'm looking. Maybe that's what I'm getting to. Like all these folks have a level of like degenness to them. Deepak Chopra gets hate from people that think he's spewing snake oil or whatever bogus stuff.
Everyone loves Pablo Stanley. That's all I have to say. Okay.
Logan Paul obviously gets a lot of.
Have you looked at book games yet?
I've been trying. So I've been
I can't connect my
looking and
wallet.
yeah, I've been going through the troubleshooter to make sure that my thing's connected because I placed 2 separate orders for books.
Yes.
So I should have 2 NFTs, but it keeps showing one. So I'm working through that, but I'm not too worried that I'll get what I want to get, or what I have coming to me or whatever.
Got it.
But he's got so many irons in the fire, and it's all like thoughtful and exciting. And
That's right. Okay. So book games, just so people don't know, he has a new book, 12 and a half, that was out. He announced on a Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern that anyone who bought it in the next 24 hours, who bought a dozen of them, would be able to participate in some special activity. And he said, trust me, trust me, trust me. You know, it'll be great. You know me. I'll make this. Based on his trust me pitch around his book, and he said he thought he wanted to drive book sales, but he was hoping that people would just buy them and give them away. Which it's really, it's like the books are free basically because someone invested because they wanted, what they were buying for was this access to this activity. And so, which we now know is called book games. He did sell, based on this, 1.2 million in pre-sale in that first week. Pretty impressive. Like it was 1 million in 24 hours.
it's insane. It's crazy.
Yeah, it just blew away. Like none of it. He's a New York Times bestseller, but people don't know that actually to be New York Times bestseller, it's actually a pretty small number of books.
Yeah, it's like 10,000 copies or something
blows,
like that. Yeah.
This blows.
Yeah. Or yeah. It's
It's
I don't even think it's that. It's a number of copies in a certain area in a certain amount of time or something. Anyway.
Yes, exactly. It's time box, but just like, okay, so everyone's lining up for book games. This will just be another thing. It's just more information for him. And by the way, everyone who bought one of these, so there's a lot of people bought these. So you could buy groups of 12. How many did you buy?
I bought 12 and then I decided I ought to buy 12 more. So I did another order of 12 more.
Okay, so I bought 36. Anybody out there, hit me up at Niftorian Rex. I might be able to work something out with you to send you a book or make it a plus up on something else we're doing together. But I have 36 of them. So that's 3. I don't know. I want to say tokens, but they're not really tokens.
Yeah.
It's 3 credits. You got 2 credits. I did one. He said they was going to do something special for Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
So I did. I bought 2 dozen on Amazon, so I bought another dozen there. So is he said what that is? What the special thing is?
I think I was trying to suss that out. I think somehow they have better odds of something in the game. I haven't looked at what exactly the game is. I've just been trying to make sure my wallet is connected.
Yeah, I can't connect my wallet. It like doesn't even recognize that.
Yeah.
That you would want to connect a wallet. I just click that button. It does nothing.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get that worked out. But okay, let's wrap up that story. A lot of Gary Vee. Book games will certainly be back in the news because at some point in January it's going to actually start, and then we'll know what it precisely is. But he's just doing so much. And we even talked about artificial and some of the other things he's doing with the marketplace. So if you want to see what's going on, you should definitely follow Gary Vee. I know some people love him. Some people do not like him. He's got that somewhat polarizing personality, but I've always felt he's a great barometer for learning quickly about things that are new. And he tries everything so you don't have to. You just see what he's doing, learn a little bit. If it's actually really working, you've got a head start. If it's not, you can ignore it and don't have to waste your time on it.
Yeah. And I'm still like, not financial advice, my own things. I bought 2 more VeeFriends last week. Yeah. The floor dropped below 9 and I was like, they were around 8 and I was,
oh my God, you're a VeeFriends order.
Everything I'm seeing of what he's doing feels right to me. And I think
you would think these things are going to start moving up in advance of VeeCon. That'll probably, I don't know, maybe they'll peak a few weeks out of VeeCon or something like that. But I suspect he's got some other things up his sleeve for the first quarter. VeeCon's not till May, so there's a lot that can happen between now and then.
Yeah, and he's been saying it. He thinks there's going to be he's been hinting at this sort of NFT winter that he's anticipating. and seeing who sticks it out. I think if that happens, he's gonna. I think that's this blue chip talk we're hearing about as it relates to NFTs. I think we're going to see what, if that sort of thing happens, what survives that period of time and who dumps them and who doesn't. And if it does happen, I think a lot of people are going to really make out if they can pick some of these up. But long term, the stuff he's doing in terms of utility and the add-ons he's offering, to me, are just really exciting. He's talking about building his own animation studio to build cartoons around this stuff. I just think it's
generated enough revenue so far to do this. He's gonna have big sponsors, I think, at VeeCon. So that's going to cover a lot of his costs there. So a lot of the money that people put into VeeFriends today, I don't think is going to have to cover the majority of the costs for VeeCon. They're going to be able to be invested in new value for VeeFriends holders.
Yeah. And I also like that. I don't know. He's still, even though he's like clearly a success in this space and he's helping out big brands and he's making a killing. I still think there's a perception that his stuff is still kind of like, not big time. It's not Bored Apes. It's not Punk's level. It's not, they're kind of uncool in some way.
Yes.
And I like that aspect of it. Like, I'm into the fact that people like, okay, go be cool.
And he likes it too. He tries to position as an underdog, but it's like one of the 3 most successful NFT drops this year.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on. That's enough Gary Vee for today. I did want to mention Kevin Rose really quickly. He's got a very popular podcast in the space, the Proof Podcast. He launched the Proof Collective a couple weeks ago. It was a Dutch auction, very similar to VeeFriends. I think it was 169 people paid 5 ETH. And then after that, there were a few dozen who paid somewhere between 5 and or 4.5 and 2 ETH. Every 10 minutes or so, it went down by half an ETH. And then at 1 ETH, it actually went in about 2 minutes, really quickly. But I think that's interesting. He basically has promised nothing. His lawyers told him, if you can listen to this podcast when he talks about it, don't promise anything because you might get sued. Okay, fine. But he said, hey, this is really important to me. I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna make this good. It's gonna be limited to 1,000 items, 1,000 tokens. So there's a Discord. That's all he's basically promising you. And he's going to do other things. But he raised $7 million, and it's really, he's got this tight community and maybe access to him. Maybe, I'm not really sure. I assume. What do you think about this? We saw Zeneca do something from Bored Ape World do this a little bit ago. We've seen someone who's like internet famous, from Dig and VC Land. Kevin Rose now is pretty active in NFTs. Thoughts?
I like this a lot from him. I think the fact that it's only 1,000, which is a lot of anything, but it's still a small enough number that he didn't go for 30,000 or something, or even 10,000. I think he's absolutely listening to lawyers and other risk-averse folks who are saying, don't promise anything because the SEC is watching and who knows what else. But I think he's established himself as his brand matters. He knows that it matters to him. His word matters to him. So I think it's kind of like the Gary Vee thing. Obviously Gary Vee shoots way more from the hip and is not remotely risk averse with not promising, but claiming that his stuff's going to go bananas. I think this is a smart move on his part. And I think that he'll probably deliver something. I have no idea what, but I mean, look, like the dude's built a lot of successful social Web 2 projects. He's been a part of them. He's done a lot. So I think he understands what community is and is thoughtful about that. So this is cool to me. And I think there's going to be a whole bunch of this type of stuff where there's going to be the celebrities that don't quite get it and someone ropes them into doing this and it fails miserably and everyone feels like it was a jip. But there's going to be folks like Kevin Rose who I think understand the space and do something thoughtful around this. And it's going to be a big deal, I think, for them and for the people that are able to participate in that.
Do you think there will be, we've seen 2 examples of this. There's probably a few others. There's certainly organizations like teams, but we've seen 2 individuals who have some credentials in the NFT space create these, we'll call it the collectives, essentially. But it's really just about them. They run it. It's buy my NFT, you get access to my group, maybe access to me. Are we going to be able to see more of these, or do you think we've seen a couple and that the market's not going to support a half dozen or a dozen of these?
I think we might see a lot more of these, to be honest. I think we're going to see a lot more bigger brands and then small projects. I think the days of the 10,000 PFP projects are probably numbered. You probably have more insight on that than me because you've been doing lots of research in that area. But yeah, I think this could be cool. And we could start to see it, or could become really popular. And we could start to see it in interesting ways. For example, if this becomes a mechanism for funding ventures for entrepreneurial folks, like now the VCs are going to get blocked out of some of this, and it's going to put them in a spot where,
don't worry. Don't worry.
I'm not worried about them at all, or how they're
fine.
Yeah, I know they'll find a way in, but it's interesting to think how that could even apply to that circle of folks. Like there's lots of neat stuff here.
Here's the way I expect this. So first of all, I think Kevin's going to build some software is part of this, and you'll have some exclusivity in the access. He's raised $7 million through NFTs. That gives him a seed capital. He'll probably take some angel money. People want to be part of this new venture. Maybe he'll raise another 5 to 10 off of that. 3 years from now, the tokens basically expire. So he'll be able to go through this process again. And at that point, if he's done well, he's hit his marks, he can raise more than 7 million in a Dutch auction. So yeah, I think we're going to see several of these from people, but not necessarily in the NFT space. It's going to be related to other things. So you think of anybody who has a big community because they have particular expertise or particular access to things that other people don't have access to. This strikes me as just a great way to go. Also a really interesting way potentially to give people ownership outside of equity. So if you have a venture, it's like we think about crowdsourced equity in some instances, but they actually have equity. You don't have equity, but you actually have you have a play, or you have a position in the success of that.
Yep.
And that actually doesn't restrict you in the way that like an equity offering, which you have to have qualified investors, or you have to have this other special process for crowdfunding of it, and still allows you to take equity investment as well. I think we're just going to see a lot of it going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to see it in, like you said, in unique ways for unique types of people. But yeah, again, once we see some examples and some of these experts in their fields see how it's being done, then we'll start to see more of it, I think.
Okay, great. Next up, CryptoDads. I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on this, but I thought it was interesting. It is the first that I'm aware of, the first NFT branded energy drink. They did a limited run. It's so CryptoDads, inspired by, I think, Bob's Burgers art. They're trying to get a TV deal. They've had crypto moms. They've got crypto tots coming up, but it seems perfectly situated for some of these brand deals. But the first one they did was not with an existing energy drink company. They did their own. And you can only actually get the CryptoDads energy drink if you own a CryptoDad. Thoughts?
I think these are cool experiments. I want to see what happens with this stuff because, we're seeing it from two sides, right? We're seeing the brands come into the NFT space, and we're seeing NFTs build brands and IP around themselves. So I'm excited to see how this works. I still love this project. I think that it's super undervalued right now. So this is exciting to me. I mean, the fact that making anything tangible is difficult. And the fact that they're doing it, I think is a testament to the team's like drive to get stuff going. So whether this is a success or failure, I think just like that they're experimenting and trying stuff.
Yes. So this is, you put it so well. We have brands getting into NFTs, and we have NFTs creating brands, NFT projects creating brands. And this is just one more way for them to drive affinity in the community. Not financial advice, but I also agree with you that it probably is undervalued right now. I think they're somewhere between 0.2 and 0.3 ETH right now. They at one point were close to 2 shortly after the drop. So I actually think that they've created a company around this. I think there's actually some good upside to it. They do have this downside though. Like I see basically no one using these as PFPs. In part because, well, I mean, the art like is decent, but a lot of the CryptoDads they just don't look great. And I think this hurts some of the mutants that just look gross. You know, some people love it, but it's a very particular taste you have to have. And a lot of the CryptoDads just don't look like something you want to be like, oh, this is me with, you know, saliva dropping down my chin and with buck teeth. So some people embrace that fully.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, I don't know. I like the project. I'll be part of it, but I don't need this to be part of my persona. And I think that hurts them. I think they would have more people in part of the project if they had some more normal looking CryptoDads.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how the like as Twitter does their verification thing and NFTs as PFPs across all social networks, as that becomes like a more thing to say, okay, this is the real one. Will you see more of that? Or in the case of this, is the fact that I guess what I'm trying to capture is it a representation of me, or is it me saying, look what I got? And to your point, yeah, I don't think anyone necessarily wants to identify with a bald, chubby dude drooling, or with whited out eyes.
Some do. I mean, I think, yeah, some do, but it's like, okay. Yeah, I think that, so I'm pretty confident they've actually made interesting steps. I think this is a play for the long term. Not my favorite NFT project, but I do like it a lot. And so, yeah, I'm fairly bullish on it, and I'm a holder.
Yeah.
And we are talking about our own bag here sometimes, because Scott and I actually own a lot of NFTs. And so, but we're not talking about a lot of the NFTs we hold, which we don't think are going to go long term. So just so you know, we're not trying to talk up our bag, because if we were, we'd be shilling, I don't know, Super Yetis. No,
I think all my Super Yetis are gone.
I got rid of them.
I did well on those in the end.
Oh yeah, because they came back.
They came back.
You were waiting.
I bought one of the Apex ones when they were down, just to have it. That was a strategy I was doing for a while. When a project got really low, I'd buy like the most rare one I could find and just hold it in the off chance that something came back.
Yeah.
And it worked there.
Cool. Okay. So while we're talking about projects, we have the Niftorian project. And Niftorian project is artist-centric, I think, as everybody knows now. It's collector-friendly. We've got actually lots of programs coming up for artists. The NFT Artist Accelerator, if you're not familiar with it, go to niftorian.com, click through. If you're an artist or if you're trying to start a project, we're running that just like a tech accelerator. But really, it's designed for artists to help them make the most of the NFT space, because it's pretty complicated. You actually need a team to be successful. So that's one of the things. We have art shows coming up and things like that, but we want them to be successful. We want collectors to meet artists and to get beyond some of the pump and hype, but things that we think, because of the quality of the people behind them and the quality of the work that they're doing, are going to be long-term successes in this space by whatever measure is important to you. So what we have been doing, though, along the lines, we've been doing these art jams, which have been so fun. I think this is our 4th or 5th right now, but we basically have artists in the community. And this one was, we gave them one of the Niftorian owls, the outline, and we said, okay, make a celebrity from it. So fun. So we'll go through each of these. Here we go. So first prize, Ariana Grande by Zion. So if you've seen any of the Niftorian owls, go to @Niftorian on Twitter. You'll see we've shown a few, or go to the Discord. We got some sneak previews, but you'll see that's the general outline. This was so good. I was like, oh, like I wouldn't have thought that I would have liked this so well, but that is Ariana Grande.
Yeah, this is cool. I like the whole thing you guys are doing with this project with the outlines of the owls, and it like inviting people to just when you see the outline, it just calls out that it wants to be played with. But these are great. I love this one.
Yeah. Okay. So number 2, this was probably my favorite.
Yeah,
Salvador
this one's
Dali.
great. Yeah.
So clever. And again, that is Salvador Dali to me. And then our third one is Vincent Van Owl. And this is a mashup. This is basically 2 different
Yeah.
video paintings, Starry Night.
Self-portrait with the Starry Night.
Yeah. So
it's cool.
So interesting to see what people can do. And this is the whole thing. Like we did the Founders Collection. We said, oh yeah, do an owl in your style. And we didn't have this like, but so many of the artists came back to us and said, oh, we like that constraint by just giving us something to work on.
Yeah, I really dug that. And it's neat to see, you know, speaking from a artist perspective, it's really cool to participate in something where other people have the same constraint and how they tackle that challenge. Because that's how you sort of grow, in my experience. If you're just doing stuff on your own in your room or wherever, you sort of go down a rabbit hole of that thing. But if you participate in these sorts of things, like some of the stuff people did was just mind blowing with the mint passes. And this is cool. Again, I love the outline thing. It just calls out to want to be filled in with something.
And we had a couple dozen of those, and we've had I think three other contests before this. If you just go to the Niftorian Discord server, there's channels with all of these contests. You can see all the entries. Some of them are amazing. There was a LeBron James version who was spinning a basketball this time. There was an Elon Musk. There were people are doing some really great work. It's actually quite hard for our jury to select the winners because there's so many high quality implementations. So I definitely recommend people check that out. If you want to go there, by the way, it is actually you can just go to bit.ly. People know bit.ly/Niftorian-NFT, and Niftorian is with a capital N and dash capital N, capital F, capital T. You'll get to that Discord. Okay, so I want to close by just doing a quick data deep dive. We've talked about a lot of things today, and I think we're going to be bringing this to a close shortly. But since I'm not sure we're going to do another session next week, maybe we will. We'll talk about that. But just in case we don't, I wanted to spend a moment and talk about some things and just talk a little bit about the data, because that's something that's very central to a lot of the work that we do and a lot of the way we think about the market. All right, so what you're seeing here is a daily volume. This is an Ethereum value per day on OpenSea. Again, a good barometer for NFTs in general because it is the largest marketplace. And what you're seeing here is the activity has hit over the last few days has fallen off to what we would have called the core, or the central element of the recession in late October and through mid-November. So we're starting to see that again. Do you think this is a broader trend, or this is just a function of the holiday season?
I think it might be both. So I think the holiday season, I think, is affecting it. I personally think that when coins are doing what they're doing, speaking for myself, in my mind, I separate NFTs and what coins are doing as two separate behaviors and two separate things. So it's hard for me to focus on both at once. So I tend to jump between, and if everything's kind of just doing this, I get a little still for a second and just watch to see what's happening. Also, I think another factor that could be happening is that could be disrupting this data, good or bad. I think a lot of folks are getting ready for tax time and are either paralyzed, not sure what to do, or are not necessarily burning, but dumping NFTs for cheap, and maybe not selling ones they've been holding for a while, so they don't have a tax burden
right
for 2021. So I think that could be a factor too. Maybe.
Okay. All right. So we see this.
But I do think there is some sort of like little something going on. I don't know if it's another
we've talked about
recession
some
or-
really popular drops that came out, but obviously overall volume is down. Now we'll look at the monthly chart. So you've got over there on the right is December, so it's lower than November, but actually we're doing this on the 22nd. So we have, call it roughly eight or 9 days left in the month. It looks like December is going to be a bigger month than November was. So maybe flattening out at this sort of lower level. And then the question is what happens in January?
Yeah, that is the question.
But
I think we're going to
compared to like May.
Yeah. Anyone that was here, like watching what was happening, I had the bad luck of breaking my leg and being stuck in a bed for most of March, April, May, and June.
It was the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yes, it allowed me to focus very intensely on this, and I can tell you exactly when that jump you see there between April and the giant spike. Yeah, I remember that moment very clearly. Yeah, it's still huge, right? But I think we're going to see something big happen in spring again, and I wonder if we're going to see lots of ups and downs until then, because I think the mix of tax season, the space evolving, brands getting in, I think all that stuff is going to play into what goes on, whether it creates paralysis in terms of what to do, or people just,
yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's look at just another thing I thought was interesting was monthly active traders. Actually pretty stable, even though the Ethereum price is going down. So, or the Ethereum volume traded is going down. So there's still people in the market. They're just getting their NFTs for lower prices.
Yes, exactly. And or they're hodling their projects that they're happy about. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess that's it for our, we'll give you a oops, how do I get rid of this? There we go. Okay. So I click through to Nutella, the NFT artist. Got a little free promo there from us. Okay. We've run long. I think we're just going to wrap this up.
Okay.
So tell me how should people keep track of what you're doing, Scott?
You can follow me at Scott Leach, SKOTLEACH on Twitter. I'm also on, that's probably the best place to find me. Twitter.
Okay, good. At Scott Leach on Twitter. And what are you most excited about in NFT land for 2022?
I'm pumped for the VeeCon stuff, seeing that announcement. I'm excited to see what happens in this next period, because I think it's lots of uncertainty, but lots of opportunity. Watching closely.
All right, I'm Creatorius Rex. You can find me on the Twitter at Creatorius Rex. I'm also at Brett Kinsella in IRL. You can find me on the Twitter at Brett Kinsella too, if you prefer. But that you're going to see AI stuff and not NFT stuff there. But I'm really excited in 2022 for the NFT Artist Accelerator and the NFT Art Show. We got a bunch of things through the Niftorian project, which are going to get hot and heavy in January. So go to Niftorian.com to check that out. If you want to apply to the accelerator, you got to do it right away, because we're going to make selections shortly. But I will say, if you have some expertise in this space, could be in development, could be in marketing, could be in, actually, you've minted a few times as an artist, we are looking for mentors. So please reach out to us, join the Discord. You can just go to niftorius.com and click the button for the Discord. That's the easiest way to do that. And let us know you're interested in being a mentor, because we want to have all of the great knowledge and expertise in the market available to the artists so they can be most successful. Scott Leach, thank you once again for another This Week in NFT News.
Thanks for having me. It's a good time.
All right, NFT land. Until next time, happy hunting.